the one silver lining that we have seen is Republican voters, Danielle, and this would be bigger news and should be bigger news, perhaps as big as news as Biden's age. In Virginia and some other states, from about 30 to 40% of Republican voters went for Haley. Like a quarter of Republican voters in North Carolina went for Haley. And Haley actually won, wait for it, Vermont. So if I'm sitting there, and some of these folks who were then interviewed, especially where I am in Virginia, these Republicans are like, if Trump is the nominee, I'm not going to vote for him. In fact, they said, I'll just hold my nose and vote for Biden. So that means Trump has weakened in the past 4 years. That's the one positive spin here, if you can get out of it, is that a lot of these Republicans are sick and tired of it. They realize that these clowns, and you were very kind in your use of language, like Mark Robinson, are now the present and future of the party. And the fact that the Republican Party now, one of its leaders, who's now resigning, has bent the knee completely and wholly to the golden calf of Trump. And they're like, you know what? I can't support this. I'll give you an example. Our neighbors, I've talked about them before, really nice people, conservative, Christian, very practicing, Republican their entire life. They openly say, I can't vote for Trump. I refuse. And they actually went for Haley. And they were begging and praying and hoping that other Republicans went for Haley. But they're like, if it's Trump, I'm not voting for him. And so there's an opening here for Biden. Now, speaking about the stakes, though, not all is rosy for Biden, because you and I, we joke about this. We're the brown and black Paul Revere. We're trying to save America. We're oftentimes right. And instead of saying, oh, hey, Danielle and Waj, thanks for being right all the time, we get shot off the horse. And we're like, we were just trying to save you. We talked about the uncommitted vote last week. And some people dismissed it as these crazy radicals, these lefties, these pro-Palestinian people. Ignore them. Well, look at Minnesota, which didn't have the organization of Michigan. What percentage of Minnesota voters went uncommitted yesterday, Dan?
Was it? It wasn't double digits, right? But it was
double. It was double digits.
Oh, was it double digits? Because I didn't know. You tell the people.
No, it was 20%. It was 20%, and the percentage
20.
Vote. Yeah, it was about 20%. And also, what came out today was officially more uncommitted votes in a Minnesota primary than the margin between Clinton and Trump in the state in the 2016 general election. And as we know, folks, this election is going to come down to about 6 to 8 states. That's how it works. Completely effed up. Can the Biden administration afford to continue ignoring, which is no longer just Muslims and Arabs, because in Minnesota, folks, it was also Jews and other progressive voters and black voters who joined the Muslims and Arabs in their uncommitted vote to protest what is happening in Gaza, which many people are calling a genocide. And I'll also say this, Adam Schiff, he won in California. I don't know if you saw this clip, Danielle, but during his entire victory speech, it was interrupted by protesters chanting for ceasefire. So are we wrong on this? Maybe we are.
No,
but I don't think so. I think it's a warning sign.
Here's the thing. And I had one of my followers say, that her family and friends in Ohio, not in Minnesota, also put in for their primary vote uncommitted. And they said they wrote uncommitted and ceasefire. That's what they wrote in. And she goes, Danielle, I couldn't bring myself to do it, even though I agree with them, because I'm too scared. I'm even too scared to do it in a primary vote. She goes, I believe what the uncommitted people are saying, and I believe in the protest, but I'm really terrified. And here's the thing. I believe that these protest votes in this moment, in these primaries, matter. I think that the Biden campaign has got to understand that this issue that they think that they can just sweep under the rug or be patted on the back for dropping some fucking aid when they are sending the money to drop bombs, right? That people are going to forget. The thing is that we have made ourselves believe that Americans don't care about foreign policy, right? That foreign policy is not going to, I was told this a couple of months ago, foreign policy is not going to play in the general election. It never does. I said, don't talk to me about never, ever again, right? We've lived through a global health pandemic, historic climate change, Donald Trump running for a third goddamn time. Don't talk to me about what would never be at play. And so I think that these uncommitted votes matter, but I also believe, being as how Donald Trump said that Netanyahu needs to finish the job.
There you go.
That's exactly what he said. So for folks who are protest voting, and again, you have the absolute right to do so, I believe that come November, they know exactly what it is that they have to fucking do. And the thing that I keep saying is that you can't fight for democracy elsewhere if you lose it in your own country. Yeah. So when Donald Trump says, hey, Netanyahu, thumbs up, finish the job, do you know what I'm saying? Like, it isn't going to be even any airdrops of humanitarian aid. It's not going to be any calls for humanitarian aid. It's going to be like bulldoze those fucking people, black out the cameras, and just end it. And that's what it's going to be. So that's the thing that people need to understand. And I believe that they do. But this administration needs to take really seriously.
And I think they are, because you saw the Vice President, Kamala Harris, she actually called for a ceasefire, but with conditions. And when she actually called for the ceasefire, huge applause from that audience. It wasn't just Muslims and Arabs. And later on, we found out that she was even going to be a little bit more strident, but then the White House scaled back some of her words. That happened a few days after the Michigan uncommitted vote. Now, after what happened in Minnesota, and specifically what happened today, where Israel just gave a middle finger to Biden. I don't know if you saw this news. They announced the building of 3,000 more settlements.
Yeah. 3,400.
Yeah, 3,400 settlements in the West Bank. By the way, folks, for those who don't know, the West Bank is considered occupied, and building settlements is also seen as illegal. But the the United States doesn't seem to really care. But because President Biden met Benny Gantz, the cabinet minister, the next day Israel's like, all right, mother effers, we'll show you. We'll keep humiliating you some more. So this is where I feel Biden and the Democrats, whom I have criticized for being utterly ossified in the 1970s on this issue, really need to see where a lot of progressives are. It's not just the fringe folks. It's not just them Muslims and Arabs. Increasingly, as this becomes more and more ugly, and if this war continues to summer and if nothing changes, I'm very worried about these uncommitted voters, who also, many of them will be swayed by this both sides nonsense of Biden's age, even though mother effing Donald Trump slurs his words without a stutter and thinks he's running against Obama and is 78 years old, is going to come to a vote of margins, Danielle. And so it's one of those warning signs where you and I have been correct. You and I also said, allow us to flex, folks. This is the small joys we get. We can't fail up like so many of our peers, right? But we said that abortion rights and defense of democracy would be major kitchen table issues before the midterm elections. And what happened, folks? The establishment folks who get paid a lot of money to be wrong said, no, it won't. And what was the top 5 issue? What brought out the voters? Abortion, democracy, defense of democracy. Abortion. And so this is where yesterday, after the results came out, Biden did say something which made me happy. And I'm sitting there just pissed off. Why don't Democrats, and especially Biden, do this more? He said after Trump won, except Vermont, Trump is determined to destroy our democracy. That's an exact quote from Biden. And I said, thank you. For the love of God, go on offense. Say this every day. Remember when he accidentally used the word semi-fascism and it got leaked, and then all these Democrats were riled up? And he's like, oh, this works. Let me run with semi-fascism and Dark Brandon. Like, where is that sense of urgency, Danielle?
Like, here's the thing. So, by the time that folks are listening to this, it will also be the State of the Union, right? So we will get understand whether or not Joe Biden continues in the direction of what is at stake. Now, we know that you can't use the State of the Union as a campaign rally, but you sure as hell can talk about, right, what we have lost over the last, as the members of the Supreme Court will be sitting front row, right? So you're talking about, I don't know, access to abortion, birth control, IVF, right? You're talking about the vote. You're talking about the ability to read books. You're talking about the ability to live free as an LGBTQ plus person, to be trans, right? So we are talking about so many things. And the thing that this campaign, the Biden campaign, has got to wrap its arms around and everyone. Where the fuck are the surrogates? Right? Because like, I don't know where people are. Were they just hiding and waiting and thinking that Nikki Haley was going to like come out on top? But the fact is that from now, this moment on, we are in election mode, right? Like it is the face-off again. And the face-off is not between Trump and Biden. It is between democracy and authoritarianism.
That's right.
So there should not be a Democrat surrogate that is going on, or the president should never get on television and not talk about democracy and freedoms being at stake. Like, that's the only thing you should talk about. So what do you think the American people care about? Their freedom, right? The freedom to choose and create a family if they so want, right? The freedom to read a book, right? The freedom to send your kids to school knowing that they won't end up dead, right? Like, so these are very real, visceral things that this campaign needs to not back away from.